Hi, welcome to another Uplift Start the Week, where we discuss topics that are relevant to the Jewish woman in a respectful and also in an open manner. This week I have a really special guest. Number one, she's special because she's my niece. Number two, she's special because she's really aware of the topic that we'll be speaking about. So this week we're speaking about depression, which we have a fantastic article in the magazine, the newest magazine, and the article is called Depression, and it's by Mrs. Henny Reichner. And Mrs. Henny is really open about her experience with depression, and I think it's really important that we are open and discuss this issue because it really does affect so many of us in so many different ways. There's people who have a diagnosis and they will take pills for it, and then there's others who never got a diagnosis, but they just feel really low. And as we age and as we, go through life, our hormones actually make us, can make us depressed. So my guest, Chumi Boardstein, hello. Say hi to everybody, Chumi.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's so cute to have my niece, but let's go. Chumi, could you just tell us like a little bit of a introduction of how you got into talking about it? Because you're really so open about it. It's fantastic.
So I was officially diagnosed with postpartum depression 2 years after my second child was born. I knew that something was up from, I would say, about 6 months after he was born, but I'm a typical woman in the frum community where it's a little bit taboo, and so I didn't want to say anything. And it's not even nothing to do with the frum community. It's just generally people never want to bring it up themselves, and like I kind of waited for someone else to say like, oh, maybe like I was complaining and now with this and now with that, and then I would wait for someone else to bring it up, and it obviously wasn't happening. And then it got really, really bad, and I dragged my husband with me to a doctor who sent me to a therapist who sent me here, who sent me there, and eventually I got a diagnosis. My baby was 2, and I started on medication. He's turning 9, so that was 7 years ago. And I've pretty much been on medication since. I went off for a little bit, but then I got pregnant and had prepartum depression. So I went back on, and I've pretty much been on it ever since. And I started being open about it when I'm on Instagram, and Kate Spade died. Well, she killed herself, and people were posting and posting and posting, and everything was just so like, I was reading it and I'm like, this is so fake. This is like people are just copying and pasting, and it just
getting
isn't.
On the bandwagon, as I call it.
It was just, and it was awful to read because it just felt so like intruding. Like people are talking about my life, but they're not even being real about it. So I was like, that's it. I have to say something, and I have to say something that's real, like that is, me. And so I did. And that, like, I got a huge response. I mean, so many people were messaging me and commenting and sharing. And I know people were talking a little bit about it on social media before that, but not really, and definitely not in the film community. But since then, it really has come a long way. I mean, now it's very normal to talk about mental health on social media to a point where it's almost overkill. Like people are getting sick and tired of it. It's like, okay, stop talking about it. We know everyone has it. It's fine. It's almost like people are just trying to be cool. Like there's certain things you have to do when you're on Instagram.
Knowing what's the cool and what's the real. So I think that's such an important thing to bring out.
As someone who suffers from it, you'll be able to.
That I wake up and I have my, I have to get out of bed today and I have to take care of the kid. That's not really depression. Depression is much deeper than that. You really could feel the whole day.
Well, there's functional depression, and then there's dysfunctional depression. And dysfunctional depression is when you really, really physically cannot move and cannot get out of bed, and that is really severe. And honestly, if you're at that point, you really, really, really need to take care of it. and you really and you will help you. You'll feel better. Even if you're still depressed for the rest of your life, you'll still feel better than when you were dysfunctional in bed. Functional depression is a lot of people have it. You know, they live a normal day-to-day life, but in their mind and in their brain, they're suffering and they're struggling, and they're what your heart is 10 times harder than anyone else's heart. So like I saw something on Instagram the other day that actually really resonated with me, and it said, if you only have 40% today and you gave 40%, you actually gave 100%.
Your
Because
40
you
is 100.
right, for you gave 40, but you only had 40, so that's 100%. You gave 100% today, and everyone's percentage is different. So
I think that's
if
really
you tell someone I gave
yeah.
100% and they're like, you just washed the dishes, well, that's
Yeah, but
100%
for
for me
you,
because
washing the dishes on that particular day is like a major hurdle.
yeah.
100%. I mean, I could definitely understand that. Let me ask you something else. When you say that, you saw that you were getting you were getting to the point that you needed a doctor. Did you right away go to the doctor and he said, "Oh, I can help you," or did they push it aside and say, "Oh, it's just something you're going through for a few days. Don't worry about it." We all women go through that.
So no, it happens to be the doctor was very good, and I also brought my husband with me for a sidekick because I was terrified to go alone. I was terrified. And I went to him and I told him, like, this is not normal. Like, what I'm going through is not normal. I wanted to drive my car into a wall. I was driving to work and I literally would hold onto the wheel with two hands. I couldn't, it was very scary to me. And I said to him, I said, this is not normal. And I know that chances are it's situational. I think my headphone might die. I said, I know it's situational because, I have a 2-year-old, I have a 5-year-old, I have a working full time. At the time, I was out the house from 8:30 till 6 every single day. I said, I know, but I cannot live like this. This isn't normal. So he's like, oh, you know what? Before, I don't want to prescribe you pills. Now, this is something that makes a great doctor. He straight out said he's not prescribing me pills. He said he'll give me a referral to a therapist who will help me. He's not prescribing pills, and I think that's very important because a regular doctor shouldn't be prescribing like
Yeah,
SSRIs
medication.
and medication because it's not his field. It's like you wouldn't go to a gastroenterologist to prescribe you diabetes medication because it's two different things, two different departments. You have to go to the right
Place.
person to give you the right medication because they're experienced in that field. So he gave me a referral to a therapist, and I tried one. And after a few months, I was like, this is not a good therapist. And I was like, okay, if I have to stay with her, like I can't leave. Then I was like, I read online, I would, do lots of Googling, and I realized that you can do whatever you want. If it's not working, it's not working. So
I mean, Chumi, I keep on calling you Chumi. I'm her aunt, remember, and I called her Chumagittel. But just reiterate that about going for help and it not being the right one, and you could change. I think that's such an important
yes,
thing because
it is.
people think that you go for help and that person, supposed to do whatever if you don't feel comfortable, then it's not the right one.
It's not the right one, and it's the crazy thing is, I feel like as just as humans, we're like that with anything. Second opinions, it's like if you hear someone went for a second opinion, you're like, whoa, they went for a second opinion. But like in reality, if someone tells you something you're not so happy to hear, or you're concerned about, or you don't feel like it works, go for a second opinion. There's nothing wrong with that. And with therapy, it's even more important because it's a shidduch. It's literally a match.
Definitely.
You have to have the right therapist. You have to have the right connection, and what some one person will say is an amazing therapist for them might be horrendous for you. And I know that because the first therapist I went to has raving reviews, 5-star top reviews. She just wasn't for me. It just didn't click. It wasn't the right match. We were great friends, we got on amazing, and that was part of the problem. I felt like every Tuesday night I was spending an hour of my time going to schmooze to a friend, and I didn't have that time. Like I was working, I was like, why am I spending my time talking to a friend? Like I need to come out feeling like I've accomplished. I need therapy. So I
That's
tried
also another
another one.
thing. When you go to somebody who is a therapist, it's not about a friendship. It's about a person knowing there's limits, there's borders. Don't cross this
Right.
border. She has to know how to give you borders.
She
It's
has to know how
very
to give you boards,
important.
and it has to feel like you're getting somewhere.
Yeah,
Meaning,
definitely.
like, it happens to be for me, talking therapy where I literally just go and tell the therapist about my day. I don't need homework. I don't need goals. I don't need that personally. So, but there still has to this there's a difference between schmoozing about your neighbor and schmoozing about your day. And when you go with a friend, you schmooze about your neighbor, you schmooze about your day a little bit, and you schmooze about the cake you made. When you
And they
talking
schmooze
to
back to you.
and they schmooze, right? It's a when you're talking to a therapist, she's listening and she's encouraging and she's giving you like, oh, why did that make you feel that way? Do you think you should have done it another way? What will you do differently next time? And again, every person has a different type of therapy they need to go to. I personally, my fourth therapist was the one, and I went to her for 5.5 years. Every beginning it was every week, then it was every 2 weeks for 5.5 years. And then I had the burnout, like the therapy burnout, where basically it was just too much. Like I needed something more,
Space.
I needed something different. Yeah. And I also needed space. Therapy did what it needed to do for me. And I still wanted to check in with someone, but I didn't need that. Like it
You
just
didn't need
wasn't,
it as that.
she wasn't
Baruch
working for
Hashem.
me anymore.
Yeah.
She wasn't working for me anymore, and that was that. So I found a different therapist, and happens to be now I see a psychotherapist, where she's a psychiatrist. She prescribes me my medication, and once a month when we check in on the medication, we have, instead of like a 15-minute session, which a lot of psychiatrists give, we have a 45-minute session where we do it's like also therapy, and that works perfectly for me right now. It might change,
Yeah,
and that will be
and
fine
I
too.
think that's the thing, is understanding that this is not a bad thing about you. It's just part of, it's like if somebody breaks their hand, they break their hand, they have to fix that bone. They have to put on a cast, or else the bone won't fix. This is
Right.
part of the same thing. It's just something in your mind that's switched off, and you got to get it switched on again. And the only thing that's going to help you is a cast, or a medication, or a therapist, or both of them. There's tools, and we're very
I think
lucky.
it's really I think it's really both, because again, when you break your arm, you have the cost, and then you have physical therapy afterwards to be able to learn how to reuse your. So here you have your medications, but you also have to learn how to do your life, how to live your life
Life, right?
properly, like the different way. You have to
Need the
retrain your
tools.
brain. You
Yeah,
need to retrain your
very
brain.
smart. I like the way you said that with the physio. You're right. That's exactly what it is. Very
It is
smart.
physical therapy for your brain.
Yeah. I'm just gonna, we don't have that long. I usually have these talks for a half hour, even though I think that I could go on and on and on with you
Yeah.
about this, because you're really very good at it. You know what you're talking about. But I think that now, Hanukkah time, this is going out the last night of Hanukkah. So obviously we've all been with family, we've all been very excited, and everything's been working, and now we're going to have that separation again, and you're going back into your little warm home in the darkness. There's something called sad, which is also part of a depression. And what happens is you could sometimes get into that mode of depression again. So how do we, as as a show that's going out to the public, how could we give some tips on what to do? You start feeling this horrible feeling come over you, this, like Henny said, it's like a dark cloud. So you start feeling this dark cloud descending. What would you say would be your first step? How do what would you
So I think
recommend?
people talk about sad, like it's a winter illness. You get depressed when it's the winter, and I really think it's not necessarily the whole winter, but it's January to like April time,
Yeah.
because until December, right? Even if you're Jewish or you're not Jewish, whatever it is, there's lights, there's action. You go the streets, everything's open late, and it's, yes, it's dark, but there's a lot of light around it. You have
Yeah.
Hanukkah coming up, and you have candles, you have menorah, and then Hanukkah's over, and it's December 31st, and that's it. And then the winter starts, because that's when it gets hard. So for myself personally, I try to, I keep the light in. So I do a lot, let's say I'll put up fairy lights for Hanukkah, I'll keep them up. And I try to go, a lot of the non-Jewish stores, right? They keep the lights up. Not necessarily the Christmas lights, but they'll keep lights. It's
Yeah,
the
the
winter.
light. Yeah.
Right. So I make a point of like going somewhere that makes you feel warm. So for me,
There's
I
a
know, let's
light.
say
There is a light that you could put up that you could buy on Amazon. I think it's called. It's
the daylight.
yeah, it's supposed to be
Yeah,
very good. It wakes you up in the morning. It stays on, and it's supposed to give you a lot of this daylight that you need. Also,
right.
vitamin D is very, very good.
So vitamin D is amazing, and I know people swear by omega-3 as well. The only reason I don't take omega-3 is because the pills are way too big for me to swallow. But I think you can get it differently, and maybe probably, you just um there's again, like you have to find things that make you feel warm and fuzzy. So for me, it's like going to the city center where the lights are all up, and even if it's dark, you have a little hot chocolate or a coffee with you, and you just sit there and you watch the people running around, because they're still running around at 5 o'clock on January 30th. There's still people running around
Yeah,
busy,
yeah,
even
yeah.
if you're not. And like I feel like that those kind of activities remind me why winter is nice. So rather than sitting at home with the rain coming down outside, much rather sit in, okay, I would say, let's say Harrods over here, Bloomingdale's, and watch people run around. There's a Starbucks inside a lot of shops, Selfridges, or these kind of stores that even if you're not buying anything, just go out your house for an hour or an hour and a half and enjoy the light
I think
from
that's such a
outside.
smart idea.
Enjoy life outside, like getting out your house. Yes, it's raining, so don't go outside. Go into a store that makes you warm and fuzzy. For me, that's designer stores that I'll never be able to buy anything in. But for other people, it's, I don't know, Marks and
Still your
Spencer, whatever
grandmother's
it is.
daughter.
Oh, I am so much so.
Anyway. Yeah, but it's true. That is a really big thing. The going out, the seeing people. I think it's so important to remember this going out and getting the air into your body. And you know
There,
something,
it's
people are.
there.
I know that when you get into this mode of being inside, and it's a real tircha, it's a real hardship to get up and get out. But when you do that, it really does help the situation.
I can
It's
tell you
nice.
another tip to help you get out of the house is to buy yourself something like that you're gonna wear when you go out. So like even if it's like a hat or a scarf, so how long does it last? A new scarf, you feel good about it for what? 2 weeks, so you put it on, you feel all good. For me, when I want to, to work out, to go out the house on a walk or something, so I'll buy myself a new workout sweater or new sneaker socks. Okay, not new sneakers because those are expensive. But even so, when I buy myself new sneakers, then for the first 2, 3 weeks, I want to go out. I want to put them on. I want to go out. Even if I won't meet anyone, I feel like I'm showing the world me.
Yeah, yeah.
And that helps you when you really have no patience. You're like, oh, but I'm going to get to wear my new sneakers. I'm going to get to wear my new hat. Put it on, go outside for half an hour. Even 15 minutes can change your mindset.
Okay, so we understand that. Now let's say we know that we're in this position that we're starting to feel really horrible with ourselves. What would you say would you say go over to a friend, go to doctor? What would you say would be an advice for somebody just starting on that journey? What should, how do they open up and say, look, there is something wrong. I'm really feeling horrible.
So the thing about going to a friend is that it depends who the friend is. We all have really good friends, and friends can be amazing friends. They just might not be amazing in this situation. Meaning that you might tell them, I'm really, I'm not feeling great. This is every day. I can't handle this. And they'll be like, oh, buckle up. Like, let's go for a coffee. Yeah. No, that's not going to work. So you need to know who your friends are. I mean, like I always tell my friends, like I'm the friend that people will text, like, what did you like? How did you go to the doctor first? And then I know like they want a little bit of push for themselves, and so I'll speak to them about it and I'll help them.
I think that's it. I think that's the thing. You have to
Yeah, you have to
it
know your
is that
friend,
you're
and if,
going
if a
through.
friend if a friend won't be is not if you don't know if they're the right type of friend, you can take your spouse, you can take your sister, you can take take someone. You go to a doctor, and if you feel you need support, take someone with you. Someone you know. So for some people it's a spouse, for other people it's a sister, for other people it's a brother or sister-in-law or a neighbor, someone who you know is there for support. Say, I need to go to the doctor and I'm just too afraid to go alone. My husband sat outside in the car while I was by the psychiatrist for the first time. I didn't need him to come inside with me. I literally just needed him to drive me there. Otherwise, I would have driven to Starbucks, had a coffee, and gone back home.
At
I wouldn't
home.
have gone to the psychiatrist. So you need to find the person that can be there for you. And if you don't have that kind of person, well, you can reach out to me. and I'm sure Tahani, because I know her as that kind of as a person you can reach out to, and just go to the doctor. It's scary, it's hard, but you can do it. You can.
Another thing I would like to just bring up, I think it's really important is if you are the friend that somebody comes over to, what you should never say is, oh, it's nothing. You'll get over it. I think it's really important to know what not to say to somebody who's going through this. So what would your advice be? My advice is never say, oh, it's nothing. Everybody goes through that, because that's not the truth. Yes, a lot of people go through it, but that's not going to help the person who's going through it to hear.
I don't really know what to not say. I can say what to say is to say you will be okay, and I'm here, I'm here for you. Like I'm here, like, do you want me to come with you to the doctor? Do you want me to make an appointment for you? Do you want me to bring you supper tomorrow night? Those are the kind of things that people want to hear. And again, not in like a nebbachtic way where like, oh, you're going through, like, oh, okay, I'll do everything I can for you. No, just be there as like, hold them up for a few days. Like that's all they
I
need. They
think
need
that's
someone to
the
hold
way
them
you
up.
said that. Be very matter of fact. Don't, like you said, don't become a nebuch. Don't make it, oh, you're so, oh, really? Because then then you're really embarrassed to talk about it. But if somebody is very matter of fact saying, oh, I'm very sorry to hear that, let me help you. I'll do this, this, and that. I think that's really a clever way of handling it.
Yeah, like that. I'm telling you, like if I would have opened up to people when beginning, and someone would have said to me, "I'm going to send you supper tomorrow night," I think I would have just, I would have like
Stop
hugged them, and
crying.
I would have cried. It was so much something that like, yeah, okay, you know what? I can make supper every night, but it's really hard.
Really hard.
Sometimes it's really hard to just again and again and again and
It's
again, and
interesting
it
because
just
you're saying postpartum, and you're talking about from your point of view. But in my stage of life, which is the menopause years, it's a lot of women have this. It's like it's so normal. It's
again,
as
like you
you're
said at the
growing
beginning, the
older, going through
hormones.
all this change. This is the way you deal. Your body.
And some people dismiss it. They're like, oh, it's just the hormones. Maybe, but that doesn't mean you have to
If it is the
live
hormones,
through
there's
hell
things they can
because of your
do.
hormones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And there's things
the
they
same.
can do. There's HRT, which is a very dirty word in our society. Everyone thinks, you hear HRT, you hear cancer, which is, it doesn't, both of them go together naturally. And there's so many different types of HRT today. There's patches, there's gels, there's just so much you could
There's,
do that you don't have
there's
to.
that, but it's also I feel like I always tell people like God Hashem made us find penicillin, and that like changed the world. Chemotherapy, like that's amazing. You
100%.
know what? He made psychiatrists, he made therapists, he made SSRIs. Like, hello, let's use them as well. Why not? They're there. Let's use them.
100%. I mean, serotonin is like one of the key things that you could take that will help you in this such situation.
Yeah,
And it doesn't
and
have
it's, I feel like it's also,
any long-term effect. You could come off and on. It's not such a terrible
yeah,
thing.
it's okay. It is hard to come off. That I will say,
Serotonin.
but you have to wean off it. Like you can't stop cold turkey, which is also something I want to say is that don't, if someone's taking a medication, they start taking medication and it's not working, you have to give it 2 weeks to kick in, and if it's still not working, then you can change. This is the same as a therapist. It's not always going to be the right one because we're working with things in the brain that, let's be honest, no one can really see or figure out 100%. So you have to figure out which one works for you. Same thing with like,
100%.
I don't know, birth control, right?
Yeah,
Everyone
no,
works
that's
differently.
what it is. That's how it works. I think, okay, before I just, another thing I wanted to bring out before, because this week, it's funny because I printed this, it's been in print for, we've been printing this for weeks and weeks already, but there happens to have been a death in the non-Jewish world of, I think his name is T-Witch. It's all over Twitch or something. It's all over the news
Yeah.
that he killed himself, and it is terrible, and it's really bad that he had committed suicide. And I just want to bring out a few things about this because a lot of people are very frightened. It's even in our Jewish community. Unfortunately, there's a lot of suicide going on. I mean, I know I was speaking to a Hatzalah guy, and he was telling us how many people he has had to talk down from committing suicide. It's just absolutely awful to think about it. But just because you're depressed does not mean that you're committing suicide. So I don't think that people
Yeah.
have to right away get into this.
There's a big step. It's like, you know, it's not when you get into the elevator on the first floor, you're not going to be in the penthouse in half a second, right? You have to go to
100%.
2, you have to go to 3, you have to go to 4, you have to go to 5. And if at any point you decide you want to go down, you can press a button, it'll start going down. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to
And
reach
not
that
only
point.
that, also depression and suicide are, in a way, it's a little bit different, because a person who's going to commit suicide will not go to the doctor and say to the doctor, hey man, I'm going to commit suicide tomorrow. It doesn't work that way. Usually the person who goes to the doctor and says, I feel that feeling, is different than the person who goes into the room and commits suicide. It's just a different.
It's different. And also I feel like if you are feeling that feeling and you go, it's important to tell someone that without the fear of like, oh, they're going to have me committed, they're going to arrest, they're not going to arrest you. And if they do feel that at this point in time you need to be in under care, then you will be helped, you will feel better. Like going into care and being it's not even like, I hate the when people say, oh, she was they're going to commit me to the psych ward. It's not a death sentence. They're going to help you.
I think we've watched too many movies. You know that? I think that's the problem. People are so, you know, they look at this like a movie thing, and it's not. It's real life. Real life is not that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that we're coming to the end. We are at the end. The timer is going to go off soon. But I just really, really feel Chumi has so much to say and to give support on this, and her Instagram page. Chumi, could you just tell everybody the Instagram page that we should?
My Instagram page is at the Ice Life. The Ice Life.
Put it underneath the.
And then you can message me day and night. I might not necessarily answer you within 5 minutes, but I always answer all my messages.
Okay, and I know she puts on loads of really interesting stuff, not only about suicide, not only about depression. She happens to be a very, 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 very artistic person who does really nice cakes, actually. And she sometimes has them on, and I'm really proud of you, Chumi Gittel. And I know I called you Chumi here. Her name is Chumi Bornstein, but she's my niece, and we call her Chumi Gittel. And she is just an amazing person, and I'm really proud. And I know we have this magazine in my mother's name, in Rebbetzin Chaiki's name, and I know she'd be so proud of you. You're a really amazing girl. So thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next week. And just remember, if you have anything that you want to talk about, or if you have to talk to a doctor, please don't be embarrassed. It's really important to get things out in the open, because it will help you in the long run. And have a great week.